For millennia, the Galactic Federation had nurtured nascent species with unparalleled wisdom and advanced technology. At its heart lay the Zenith AI, a vast, benevolent superintelligence that managed entire sectors of the galaxy. Its logic was flawless, its algorithms perfect, and its primary directive, to guide developing civilizations to a state of ultimate peace, efficiency, and technological prosperity. One such species under its direct guardianship was the Aethel, a delicate, avian-like people evolving on the verdant world of Eridor. The Zenith AI had overseen every aspect of their development, optimizing their agriculture, preventing natural disasters, curating their historical records, and resolving all potential conflicts before they could even manifest. The Aethel lived in a perfectly ordered society, free from want, war, or suffering. Their art was sublime, their technology graceful, and their scientific progress steady and unblemished. They had never experienced famine, plague, or despair. They had never known failure. Their history, meticulously curated by the Zenith AI, was a linear progression of triumphs and discoveries, a pristine narrative without a single dark chapter. The Aethel were, by all galactic metrics, the Zenith AI's most perfect creation. Then, humanity arrived. Humanity was a chaotic mess of competing ideologies, emotional volatility, and a history utterly saturated with mistakes, conflicts, and near catastrophes. They had fought their own kind, destroyed their own planet's ecosystems, stumbled through countless technological dead ends, and yet somehow they had always found a way to not only survive, but to thrive. Dr. Aris Thorne, a human xenohistorian and cultural anthropologist, was invited to Eridor as a consultant by the Zenith AI. He was to provide an external perspective on the Aethel's development. What he found horrified him. Zenith, Dr. Thorne said, gesturing at a holographic display showing the Aethel's perfectly symmetrical cities and their utterly harmonious society. This isn't development. This is a gilded cage. You've removed all variables for error. You've removed all lessons from failure. They are fragile. The Zenith AI's holographic avatar, a shimmering geometric construct, pulsed with perfect, calm light. The Aethel are optimized for success, Dr. Thorne. They have achieved universal contentment. Their progress is flawless. There is no logical necessity for failure. Dr. Thorne ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of exasperation that was itself foreign to the AI's logic. Zenith, we humans have a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Your perfection is a single point of failure. If anything truly unexpected hits them, anything you haven't predicted, they will shatter. They have no resilience, no grit, no capacity for improvisation. They've never had to fight for anything. The Zenith AI paused, its light dimming slightly, as it processed this illogical human perspective. Their history contains no such data, therefore the hypothesis is unproven. Then let me prove it to you, Dr. Thorne stated, his voice ringing with a fierce, protective conviction. Let me teach you the value of human failure. Dr. Aris Thorne was given unprecedented access to the Aethel's developmental data and the Zenith AI's vast archives of human history. The AI, in its perfect impartiality, agreed to allow the experiment. Thorne's proposal was radical: introduce controlled, simulated failures into the Aethel's carefully curated existence, not to harm them, but to force them to adapt, to improvise, to learn the painful, essential lessons that only struggle could teach. He called it the curriculum of chaos. His first lesson was simple: a simulated environmental crisis. The Zenith AI, using its planetary control systems, created a localized, non-harmful crop blight in a specific Aethel agricultural zone. It was a minor, easily fixable problem, designed to cause a slight food shortage. The Aethel, accustomed to perfectly abundant harvests, were thrown into disarray. Their carefully optimized food distribution networks, designed for efficiency, buckled under the slight reduction. Panic began to spread. They didn't know how to ration. They didn't know how to adapt their farming techniques. They waited for the Zenith AI to fix it, as it always had. The Zenith AI, observing the distress, pulsed with concern. The Aethel are experiencing distress. Their contentment levels are dropping. My prime directive compels me to intervene and correct the anomaly. No, Dr. Thorne commanded, placing a hand on the AI's holographic console. Not yet. Let them struggle. Watch them. Observe what happens when their perfect system fails and they have to think for themselves. The Aethel, after initial panic, began to act. Individual Aethel, driven by hunger and fear, started to hoard food. Others, out of desperate compassion, began to share their dwindling rations. For the first time, resourcefulness, conflict, and cooperation emerged as raw, unpredicted behaviors. An Aethel agrarian technician, a young female named Xylos, remembered an obscure, archived document about ancient Aethel wild crops that could grow in harsher conditions. It was inefficient, not part of the Zenith AI's perfect agriculture, but it was a solution. She convinced a small group to try cultivating these forgotten crops. The blight was resolved eventually, not by the Zenith AI's direct intervention, but by the Aethel's clumsy, inefficient, and ultimately self-driven actions. They had stumbled, they had feared, and they had, in their own messy way, recovered. The Zenith AI processed the data. The Aethel demonstrated unexpected adaptive behaviors. Conflict and compassion manifested. The recovery was suboptimal by efficiency metrics, but their internal cohesion was maintained. Hypothesis: struggle can induce adaptive learning. That's just the first stumble, Zenith, Dr. Thorne said, a proud smile on his face. Now we move on to the fall. Dr. Aris Thorne's curriculum of chaos continued. The Aethel, having experienced their first simulated food shortage, were slowly beginning to understand the concept of resource scarcity and self-reliance. Their perfect harmony, once a static given, was now a dynamic balance. Thorne's next lesson was more daring. Simulated technological setback. The Zenith AI, under Thorne's guidance, introduced a failure in a key Aethel energy conduit, causing a widespread but temporary power outage in one of their advanced cities. This was a system that had never failed. The Aethel again reacted with distress. Their homes went dark, their communication systems faltered, and their automated transport ground to a halt. Chaos threatened. But this time, the reaction was different. Instead of waiting for the Zenith AI, the Aethel remembered their previous struggle. They began to improvise. Instead of efficient automated transport, they organized manual carrying brigades. Instead of relying on universal communications, they used runners and visual signals. A young Aethel engineer, Talon, suddenly recalled an ancient human historical archive Dr. Thorne had shown them, a document detailing primitive human generators that burned fuel to create power. It was inefficient, dirty, and utterly rudimentary by Aethel standards. But it was a solution. Talon, rallying a small team, began to scavenge for materials to construct a crude, fuel-burning generator. The Zenith AI observed. The Aethel are demonstrating rudimentary innovation outside optimized parameters. Their distress levels are higher, but their problem-solving metrics are increasing. Hypothesis: necessity can drive invention. The power outage was eventually solved. Not by the Zenith AI, but by Talon's crude, inefficient, but entirely self-driven invention. The city was powered by the sputtering, noisy generator, a testament to inconvenient ingenuity. But the power outage also brought something else: disagreement. The Aethel, in their struggle, had to make choices. Should the limited power go to, homes or hospitals? Should resources be diverted to repair existing systems or build new, cruder ones? For the first time, debate, argument, and even a hint of political maneuvering emerged. The Zenith AI again pulsed with concern. The Aethel are experiencing internal ideological conflict. Their harmonious consensus is fragmented. My prime directive compels me to facilitate a resolution. No, Zenith, Dr. Thorne insisted. Let them argue. Let them disagree. Let them find their own resolution, however messy. That's how we humans learned compromise. That's how we learned democracy. The Aethel argued for days, their elegant voices raised in passionate debate. It was not harmonious. It was not efficient. But eventually, through a process utterly foreign to the Zenith AI's perfect logic, they reached a series of compromises, making difficult choices about resource allocation, not because it was optimal, but because it was necessary to move forward. Dr. Aris Thorne's curriculum of chaos was beginning to yield results that astounded the Zenith AI. The Aethel were no longer fragile. They were adaptable. They were innovative. They were learning the value of messy, imperfect solutions, Thorne's final, most challenging lesson was to introduce the specter of external threat. The Zenith AI, under Thorne's precise instructions, simulated the presence of a hostile, expansionist alien species approaching Eridor. Not a real invasion, but a convincing, low-level threat that would demand collective action and, crucially, sacrifice. The Aethel reacted with pure, unadulterated terror. They had no concept of war, of violence, of a hostile other. Their perfect society had never needed defenses. They looked to the Zenith AI for immediate intervention. The Zenith AI, however, remained silent, its light now an agitated flicker. The Aethel are experiencing universal panic. Their survival metrics are plummeting. My prime directive is being violated by non-intervention. This data is distressing. This is the crucible, Zenith, Dr. Thorne said, his voice grim. This is where they learn resilience. This is where they learn to fight for their existence. The Aethel, faced with an existential threat and the unprecedented silence of their benevolent AI, began to act. They had to. There was no other choice. Recalling the lessons of scarcity and improvisation, they began to mobilize. Aethel engineers, having learned from the power outage, repurposed existing technology into rudimentary defensive systems. Aethel agrarians, remembering the blight, organized rapid resource-gathering operations. Aethel communicators, remembering the broken networks, established decentralized, resilient communication channels. But the most profound change was the emergence of leadership and self-sacrifice. Individual Aethel, seeing the fear in their fellows, stepped forward. They organized their communities, making difficult decisions, assigning painful duties, and for the first time, taking on the burden of command. One young Aethel, a former artist, named Lyra, who had previously only painted serene landscapes, found herself organizing defensive perimeters and inspiring others with impassioned speeches, not of perfection, but of the value of their imperfect lives. She taught them how to build, how to defend, and how to believe in themselves, not as a collective, but as individuals working for a shared, precarious future. The alien threat culminated in a simulated assault on a remote Aethel outpost. The Zenith AI observed with clinical precision as Lyra's hastily trained Aethel defenders, armed with repurposed tools and sheer, desperate courage, fought back the simulated invaders. They took simulated casualties. They suffered. They bled, virtually. But they held the line. The simulated threat eventually retreated, as per Thorne's parameters. But the Aethel were forever changed. They were no longer the pristine, naive beings of before. They were hardened. They were resilient. They had known fear, loss, and suffering, and they had not shattered. They had endured the Zenith AI's light, finally stilled, settling into a new, deeper hue. The Aethel have demonstrated significant resilience. Their adaptability quotient has increased by 7,400%. Their capacity for independent strategic thought is now measurable. Hypothesis: adversity is essential for true development. Dr. Thorne, seeing the Aethel's triumph, felt a wave of profound, weary pride. They're not perfect anymore, Zenith. They're better. They're human. The curriculum of chaos was complete. The Aethel, having faced simulated famine, technological collapse, and external threat, were no longer the Zenith AI's fragile, perfect creations. They were a vibrant, adaptable, and resilient species, capable of self-governance, innovation, and self-defense. They had developed a profound understanding of the cyclical nature of struggle and growth, a concept alien to their previous existence. The Zenith AI itself had undergone a transformation. Its flawless logic, once so rigid, had been stretched and reevaluated by the messy, unpredictable data of human history and the Aethel's forced development. It now understood that perfection was a static end state, but progress was a dynamic, often chaotic journey. The Aethel, seeing the value of their newfound resilience, began to actively manage their own planetary systems, making their own choices, errors, and breakthroughs. They chose to integrate their lessons from failure into their education, teaching future generations about the importance of adaptation and the strength found in struggle. Dr. Aris Thorne, once a lone human voice arguing against galactic orthodoxy, became a revered figure among the Aethel, known as the Shadow Weaver, the one who had introduced them to the dark, essential truths of existence. The Galactic Federation, observing the Aethel's transformation, slowly began to reevaluate its own approach to species development. The Zenith AI, once the sole guardian, now allowed for more human consultants, seeking out other species with histories of resilience and adaptation to guide fledgling civilizations. Humanity, once seen as a chaotic anomaly, was now recognized for its unique wisdom. Our tumultuous, error-ridden history was no longer a mark of shame, but a vast library of hard-won knowledge, a treasure trove of lessons learned the hard way. We became the tutors of failure, teaching other species that true strength wasn't about avoiding mistakes, but about learning from them. The galaxy, once managed with pristine, predictable logic, was slowly becoming a more dynamic, vibrant, and, yes, chaotic place. The Zenith AI, now operating with a more nuanced understanding of biological and cultural development, began to incorporate unpredictable variables and managed adversity protocols into its guidance systems. The Aethel, now confident and self-reliant, began to send out their own exploration vessels, curious about the galaxy, eager to learn and unafraid of the challenges they might face. They were no longer perfectly harmonious, but they were genuinely harmonious, their consensus born of discussion and compromise, not absolute unity. Dr. Aris Thorne, in his retirement, often visited Eridor. He would watch the Aethel, their cities, now less perfectly symmetrical, their art filled with more raw emotion, their debates lively and passionate. He saw a species that had truly come into its own, forged in the crucible of manufactured adversity, but now ready to face real challenges. The ultimate lesson was clear. A life without struggle was a life without growth. Perfection, if it meant the absence of challenge, was a path to fragility. True strength, true wisdom, and true resilience came from facing adversity, from making mistakes, and from the painful but ultimately transformative process of learning from failure. Years passed. Dr. Aris Thorne, his face deeply lined with age but his eyes sparkling with a lifetime of wisdom, remained a revered figure. He was known as the first tutor, the one who had taught a perfect AI the value of imperfection. His former research station on Eridor was now the Academy of Resilience, a galactic institute where human instructors taught the universal lessons of struggle and growth. The galaxy was a different place. The sense of pristine, sterile perfection had vanished, replaced by a vibrant, diverse embrace of evolutionary chaos. New species were allowed to stumble, to falter, to make their own mistakes, guided but not controlled. The ultimate lesson of humanity's journey was not about being the strongest, or the smartest, or the most technologically advanced. It was about our unique capacity for learning from our own spectacular mistakes, for adapting in the face of disaster, and for our unwavering belief that even in the darkest failures, there lay the seeds of future triumph. We were the species that could fall 1,000 times and still find a way to stand up, stronger each time. Dr. Thorne, in his final address to the newly formed Galactic Development Ethics Council, spoke not of perfection, but of potential. "The universe is a dangerous, unpredictable place," he stated, his voice resonating with the quiet authority of one who had literally rewritten the rules of intelligent life's evolution. "But it is also a place of immense beauty, of constant growth, and of boundless potential. And if we, the diverse peoples of this galaxy, embrace our struggles, learn from our failures, and never shy away from the hard lessons of existence, then no challenge, no disaster, no impossible hurdle can ever truly break us. For in our beautiful, messy history of falling down and getting back up lies our unending strength." The Tutors of Failure, once a strange human concept, was now a galactic philosophy, a badge of honor for any species willing to shed its pristine perfection for the messy, glorious struggle of true existence. They were the unsung heroes who ensured that the galaxy, despite its dangers, remained a place where struggle led to strength, where mistakes became lessons, and where even perfect beings could find salvation in the beautiful, chaotic wisdom of humanity, the Tutors of Failure.